The following was recorded in front of a live studio audience at the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe. This is the United Podcast Network.
Welcome to the Writer's Block Podcast NH. This is a podcast designed by writers for writers on the journey to being published. Joined Mandra Biscornet.
It was so healthy and nutritious.
Deborah Monk.
Can we open each podcast with a dance number?
Shelley Devlin.
It was so full of inspiration and sparkles.
Every Tuesday morning live on YouTube. And make sure you subscribe to catch the podcast anytime on iTunes, iHeartRadio, Podbean, Spotify, or your favorite podcast catcher. It's time to be inspired, feel empowered, and be well with the Writer's Block Podcast NH.
And welcome to the Writer's Block Podcast. I'm Mandra.
I'm Debbie.
And I'm Shelley.
Thank you for joining us at the Writer's Block, where our mission is to inspire and empower and help people be well. We are streaming live this Tuesday morning on Facebook. And today we welcome author and TV and radio personality Mike Morin. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Honored to be here.
Thank you for coming out this morning.
Sure.
We're here. He's here to talk to us about marketing strategies for your book. Mike has written for the Telegraph of Nashua, New Hampshire, and was also a co-host of the popular New Hampshire in the Morning show on radio station WZID in Manchester. His books include 50 Shades of Radio and Lunch with Tommy and Stasia. So glad you're here.
Well, thank you for pronouncing Stasia correctly, because so many people have no idea how to say that name.
Oh, really?
Which is Polish, yeah. I think it's short for Anastasia. So if you think of it that way, you get it right.
I'm glad. I didn't even think about it last night when I was reviewing. I'm like, well, it's Stasia.
Well, you got it right. And it's she is the goat, if you will, of women bowlers in the history of the game. So we got to get her name right. Yes. Tommy's easy. That's a slam dunk.
And that's the other piece of it. Like if you grew up in the New England area, you also might remember Mike from Saturday morning's Candlepin Bowling.
That's partly right. Saturday morning was the show that was on Channel 5 that for many, many years, for 38 years, had higher ratings than a lot of the, like the Red Sox and the Celtics. I hosted the show on noon on Sunday, although I think maybe they replayed it occasionally on Saturday, so you're halfway right there. But the show I did was on Channel 50 in New Hampshire, WNDS, The Winds.
The Winds.
Featuring Al Caprilli and High Pressure! Sorry, did I blow off the equipment? Anyway, the station no longer exists, and the tapes sadly do not. I've had so many people after writing the book say, well, I sure hope you got the tapes. Well, I didn't. I didn't own the station, and they would just record over them whatever they needed for newscasts or whatever.
That's too bad.
Even Channel 5, which really is the gold standard for Candlepin bowling shows for 38 years. I'm pretty sure they don't have many tapes either. And it's as if they assumed it would be here forever and nobody would ever care.
Right.
And I'm finding out after writing Lunch with Tommy and Stasia that people do care because they want to hold on to.
They want to go back and watch old footage of bowling.
They really do, and I know that sounds
crazy,
but there were like 200,000 viewers, right?
There were 200. That's exactly right. 200,000 people, households. So let's say some households had, a couple people watching. You could have had 500,000 viewership, and there aren't a whole lot of shows locally. That's, again, the Boston market. The ratings were phenomenal. I've got some clippings that they put in the paper every week to show how many people watched it. So for those that are really wanting to see it, YouTube has a great wealth of a lot of those shows. It reminding me how young I used to look when I see my old shows from the 90s and the 2000s. Yeah.
Oh. Well, tell us about your books and
what made you decide to write the book?
Yeah.
Well, I always loved bowling. I mean, let's go back to when you were a kid, from 6 years old. Now, growing up in Michigan, it was 10-pin or big ball bowling, which Candlepin bowlers really look down on. I mean, they have such an attitude about because the scores are higher and it's easier to knock down the pins. So I always enjoyed it. Then I moved here, and I couldn't find much 10-pin bowling. I never heard of Candlepin bowling. I said, well, why not try that? I'm not going to get any better as a 10-pin bowler. So I tried it, and I liked it, and I met some of the right people that were connected with the association that ran all the bowling centers, they knew that I had some media savvy, so they brought me in. And before long, I'm doing a TV show, meeting all the right people. So I know the owners, I know the professional bowlers who are the faces of the game, and I can write. So it seemed like the perfect storm because let's face it, if you write a book, you want to try to fill a need. Well, nobody has written a book in 40 years on the game. So I thought, well, there's a lot of celebrities.
So your market wasn't really flooded.
That was a niche.
Yeah, it was a niche. It was a niche that I had to scratch, so to speak. No, it was a hole. You could drive a truck through it, and why nobody did the book before, I don't know. But it's been out since late February, and I'm hoping to go to a second printing sometime this year.
Great.
I don't know if that'll happen.
In New England, a lot of people don't realize this, but we've got 3 kinds of bowling. We have 10 pin, which is we call big ball bowling.
Right.
Then there's candle pin, which is they look like candlesticks.
Yeah.
And then there's duck pin,
Yes.
which is sort of the motherless stepchild kicked off to the side, which is a medium-sized ball that you don't have holes in. You hold it like a candle pin ball, but the pins are shaped kind of like that cartoon shape of a bowling pin.
It reminds me of taking a regular, 10 pin and putting in a device and squishing it down, and that it looks like it's about a half the size, and it's a little bit fatter. And I have to be honest with you, that's my favorite form of bowling because it combines candle pins and 10 pins as far as the rules and everything else. It's a lot of fun. There's only a couple places up here to do it. It's mostly in Rhode Island or the Middle Atlantic states. More than
how do you know that?
Yeah.
I pay attention to life. It's just-
Wow.
So, but I'm guessing you didn't really want to just talk about bowling. You probably.
Well, the funny thing is, my only memory of bowling is in high school. I went on 2 dates, and they were that happened to be bowling, and both of the dates sucked.
Oh.
So you had a bad taste.
I have that little sense of, this isn't going to be good.
But it's such a great date type of activity because it's like. It's a neutral kind of thing, it's not
active. It's not sitting there watching a movie. Yeah.
Right. So we could do a whole thing on dating.
We could. We could do a whole thing on bowling. We could do several things. But tell us about how you went about marketing the book.
How long did it take you to write it?
It took 2 years to write the book, which I think is a good amount of time.
Right, I'm right in there then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're both right in there.
I mean, some people take
2
10 years, and I'm not sure what you...
I don't want to
do
take
for
that
10 much
years?
better.
No.
Yeah.
A year might be a little bit too short unless you 40 hours a week go at it. But I mean, you really have to put a nice outline together and decide all the things you want to talk about, and then start to prioritize which ones mean the most to you, and you just start digging in and calling people. You need to go face to face. You can't just sit there and Google the things you want to know. I mean, that helps, but you need to go talk to the people and get their stories.
Do the interviews.
Interviews because this is where you uncover lots of things that people don't know.
Right.
They may have watched all the bowling shows, but guess what? They didn't know what happened behind the scenes.
Well, the juicy facts of this guy hated that guy, and they end up paired together for the finals, and this is like a bloodbath.
Yeah, there wasn't a whole lot of that, although because I wasn't.
Jonathan was
I'm not
really
reading
wishing.
the book then.
I wasn't going for that, but I do have some dirt in there.
All right,
I will assure you.
Well,
Right,
I
so
think your entire career has been on speaking. Did you find it hard to actually write? Because speaking is different than writing, which I have found. Speaking is my profession. I speak all day.
Yes.
Then you put it into words. It's a little different.
Yeah, when I started in radio, one of the jobs you have to do because, you have to do everything in the station, including, sometimes cleaning the toilets. But I was responsible for writing commercials because that was one of the things that had to get done. So I found
you
that
had some writing.
Yeah, I and even in high school, I got really good grades for creative writing, but I didn't set that as what I wanted to do for a living. I wanted to do radio. But if you can write well, you can organize your thoughts and speak creatively, and so it all kind of blends together. So I knew after 43 years of radio that I needed to see if I could really do it, dedicate it full time.
I think if you're a copywriter, if you're writing copy for commercials, that is the most difficult form of writing.
It is.
Because you've got to condense everything about that product into
words.
A 30-second slot or a 45-second slot, or sometimes you're lucky and they bought a minute. But being able to get everything that you want to say so concise, I think if you can write copy, you can write anything.
That's very true. I would agree with that.
Well, now, I didn't mean to interrupt Mandra's question of the marketing of the book.
We want to get to that for sure.
Well, marketing, I mean, there's, that I could talk about for hours, but the basics are you need to, in my opinion, show the publisher, unless you're self-publishing, which I've been fortunate that I've had, actual traditional publishers. You have to let them know and show them that you are going to be the person that's going to go out and do the work. If you're not comfortable face-to-face selling, if you're not comfortable getting in front of a group, be it 50 or 500 people, then it's going to be tough because publishers don't have the resources to actually do the marketing. You have to do it yourself. And if you don't like being around people, it's going to be tough. And if you don't have a compelling topic or something that's going to go viral, you're not going to sell books. So luckily, I enjoy people. You can probably tell I'm extremely shy and withdrawn.
But I think
we're
that's
having
a
to pull
problem for
everything.
some writers.
I know it is.
For a lot of writers.
Yeah, it's very
I know it is,
difficult for them
because
to get out in front of
you're
people.
totally right, Mandra, because you can sit back and you can be at your word processor. And just like being in radio, you're sitting in a booth and nobody sees you other than your coworkers. But put a radio personality out in front of a lot of people and they don't know what to do. That's something you have to get over. You just have to get over that because people want to meet the author. I mean, one of my favorite things is book signings. You meet the people that give you the feedback that either like your work or they've read the book already. And it's very gratifying, that part of it. It's like you write the book, you hope it'll be well received, and then you show up and there's people that want to hear you talk.
How do you
You
go
hope
about
there's people.
Exactly.
How do you go about getting booked for the signings?
Booked for the signings is not extremely easy. Now, I have a bit of an advantage because a lot of people know who I am.
Right.
So let's say, okay, we know who you are. You're a known quantity, and the book topic is, not extremely wide, but we know there's enough people. So basically, what I do, and I don't bet 100% in getting booked.
Right, which is so important to say.
Yeah.
Because people try once and they don't get it and they think
honest.
I'm not going to. Right.
And even though a lot of people know me, especially in this area, in the Merrimack Valley or north of Boston or Manchester. But I'll give you an example as I started reaching out to libraries because they're a great place to talk. And by the way, here's a secret. A lot of them will pay you to speak. There is funding for that. There is money available. So I started reaching out mostly by email, and the libraries that I spoke to on the first book, 50 Shades of Radio, were, oh yeah, sure, we're glad to have you. Then I wrote to libraries in the Worcester area and Sturbridge, Massachusetts, because that's kind of the cradle of Candlepin bowling, and the two stars of my book, Tommy and Stasia, are also from there. I said, by the way, if you'd like to have something local that's been professionally written, here's the deal. I sent them the press release, wrote a little personal note, crickets. So now I'm going to have to follow up. I said, well, I'm not going to be defeated here. So I sent information and a personal note to the Sturbridge Press, which covers all those little towns, and they did a story on it. Okay, now I've got something I can show to the libraries and say, okay, well, look at. Hello, this is right in your wheelhouse. This is, what is Worcester known for? Worcester is known for rocketry was invented there, and Candlepin bowling, and there's one other thing. Why wouldn't you want to have somebody come in and speak for an hour and sell some books? I may or may not get paid for those. So those are ones I have to follow up on. But if you're not willing to put in the work, they're not going to come to you. Now, it was easy for me to book, Hooksett and all these other places. I'm going to be in Wyndham on April 2nd speaking because they know me. So in places they don't know you, that's where even I have to work. But I know the little tricks, and I kind of know how to do that.
All right, so speaking, book signings, but really pounding the pavement and
That's what it
getting
is.
out there
Pounding
on
the
your
pavement.
own.
And not taking rejection and not letting that be, okay, it's not going to happen for me. You've got to try again.
Yeah, for instance, Londonderry, I didn't hear back from them. I appreciate this doesn't, it's not a fit for
No,
us.
thank you.
Yeah,
type of thing.
that's cool. I get that. I'm not personally offended by that. So I talked to some other writer friends of mine. I said, no, Londonderry's hard to get into. Yeah. Actually, I did hear back from them. They said, we're booked through the end of the year. And this is February. I said, no, you're not. No, you're not. So I am personally going to go there when I have a couple minutes because I have these promo cards for the book, and I'm going to find that person and say, do you realize how big this game was in this area?
Right.
And that people know me, and they will come out.
Do you bring books to a library?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Part of the deal is, because a lot of them won't pay and some of them will, well, part of the deal is, all right, I need to do a book signing and sell my books. And they have never turned that down.
Okay.
That's kind of a good trade-off for those that won't pay you. So, and speaking is good practice. The more you do it, the better you get at
Right.
it.
And the more comfortable you get at it. It's one of those, like writing, the only way to get better is to do it.
Yeah. So it's hard for me to understand why people aren't comfortable speaking, although I do know it's the number one phobia in this country. So I think it doesn't hurt to know just a few little secrets about being a better speaker and getting confident. It's confidence is what it's all about.
It is, yeah.
And the secret there is be in command of your material. No, and then why wouldn't you want to talk and spread the word? You gave birth to this baby. Now it's time to raise it. Really.
Wow.
I know. And I don't know anything about giving birth, all right? Don't jump on me.
No, but I've never heard it put that way.
That's an analogy. And who loves your baby more than you? Nobody.
Right. So you should be the one out front talking about it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But now you have to raise it, right? That really does show how much more work, how you think the hard part. And remember when you're pregnant, you think, oh my God, especially we're at the end when you can't wait to have the baby, out of you.
Yes.
You don't realize, it's going to be so much harder. Stay in there.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I
Cook
always,
for 5 years if you need to.
I always thought, because I'm the father of one child, and I was a stay-at-home dad because my hours had me home by 10 o'clock, so not totally stay-at-home. But I thought the first couple of years were the easiest because, well, there's really not any behavioral issues to deal with.
Right.
Then, of course, for those of you that have children know that it just gets, it becomes a you-know-what storm after a while sometimes.
And now you have to raise it.
Yes.
Boy.
Yeah.
So did you do the traditional publishing route with both of your books?
I did. Now, they're small, local publishing houses.
Okay.
But, it was their dime. There's no risk on my part.
Right.
But I'm doing the work.
But they take a chunk, too.
They do. But that's how it is everywhere. But I have a little bit more control because I get to control the message of how I want the book to be branded. And that's what I like. If you go to, say, a HarperCollins or a Penguin Press or one of those big New York houses, you don't have very much say and control. They've got a bigger net to cast, but they're also promoting 50 other books, and yours might get shoved down at number 33 on the priority list.
Right.
So the first book, 50 Shades of Radio, is Plaid Swede Press, which is a small publisher in Concord. And the guy that owns it was formerly in the newspaper business, and because I still write and wrote for the National Telegraph where he worked, there was the connection, and he was interested. So the book is partly memoir and partly columns, because he said, oh, why don't you do a book on columns, a compilation? I said, because people have read it already. I don't think they want to buy a book. But that's a very popular genre to do. So I said, all right, I'll meet you in the middle. Let me do my memoir because I got some really great stories. And then I'll do 100 columns. I said, okay, that's cool. So we did that. The second book is Hobblebush, which is a really cool little publisher out of Brookline, New Hampshire.
Okay.
And they do beautiful books, and they do mostly work for others, but 4 books a year they do on their dime, and mine was one of them. And I pitched them a couple years ago. I said, I'm thinking of doing a book about the kind of the culture of candlepin bowling, and they said, we'd be interested. So I sent them an outline, and I think I sent a sample chapter, which you should do, at least minimally one. And they were on board right away.
Why didn't you go with the same publisher on the second book?
I felt that they didn't reach out as much as they could. They didn't want to put it on Amazon. Now, I'm not a fan of Amazon, but if you want people all over the country, I'll take a little bit of money versus none at all, plus getting the word out. So he was not comfortable, didn't want to do Amazon.
Why not?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think people sometimes become
set in their ways.
Creatures of habit. Yeah, set in their. That's
Well,
And
not
it was
only that,
it was a fairly new.
Amazon has basically ruined it for
they have
all the big publishing houses because you can do everything right there.
Yeah, but you still need to be on there. You need to be on there. I don't like it that much, although I still get the same amount that my publisher gets less. So what was the question again? Oh, why did I go with them? Because I just felt that they had a little better grasp on a wider net, and I felt that, when you write a book about yourself, that's really narrow, and only people kind of in this area were interested. But Candlepin Bowling is now, it's regional, and I can go to 4 or 5 states, and you need to have that kind of reach. And I didn't feel that the first publisher would be doing that.
Do you have a third book in you?
I do. It's being written right now. It is the history of the Red Arrow Diner, which is an iconic little teeny tiny restaurant in Manchester, which will have been around for 100 years in 2022. And I went to Carol Lawrence, the owner. I said, do you realize you have so many stories that nobody's told? I think I should do the book.
It's a serious political hotspot.
It's next February.
That's where candidates go, right?
That's right. So I'll be camping out there. That'll be part of the book is all the political people that come in and out. And I mean, Adam Sandler hangs out there when he's in town. He just kind of quietly goes in and people pretty much leave him alone. His dad has a sandwich named after him there. But the start of the diner in 1922 was really very interesting. I went down to Connecticut where the son of the diner, because the owner passed away. Mm-hmm. The son is 85 years old and completely with it. He was a lawyer, but actually worked for the Rockefeller Foundation. So boy, does he have stories. I mean, I got stuff that people that are fans of the Red Arrow would never know happened. And that's the fun of doing a book, is finding stuff nobody knows.
Right. And you've got a built-in audience, I would imagine.
Oh my God, yeah.
That the Red Arrow is going to sell it.
Right?
Totally.
A million times.
And
where is it?
It's on Lowell Street in Manchester.
Yeah, it's a greasy diner downtown.
Well, there's a few now. That's the original.
That's right. I recommend, to get the real feel, is to go on in the original one, which is a little bit bigger than a phone booth. I mean, it's very small, but every square inch of the wall is covered with newspaper clippings, photos, celebrities, because that's the place to go. Like the Bare Naked Ladies, after they did a show at the Palace Theater, they go right up to the Red Arrow Diner at 2 in the morning because it's open 24 hours. So can you imagine the stories, when this is all done?
Right. Well, that's what we'd go out to if we went out to a club or whatever. My husband is from the Manchester area. Yeah. Where do you go to eat when, it's 1 in the morning and you're
After
hungry?
the Black Brimmer, you went to the Red Arrow.
That's right, Shell. We were probably there similar nights.
That's where Deb and I met, was the Black Brimmer.
Is that right?
Front door.
Manchester.
Sorry.
Was it really? And you didn't go to the Red Arrow after?
The date could have gone a little longer had I thought
bowling?
of the Red Arrow.
Yes.
No, we walked around. I think we walked around
Till
Manchester.
like 3 in the morning. It started getting pretty dicey out there. There's
now, what year was it? When are we talking? How far back?
2003.
All right, so downtown was really on a way up after, the Verizon Wireless Arena, which opened in 2000. It was really starting to become a destination. You go down there now at night on a Friday or Saturday, it's packed. People are walking. It's really a vibrant place to be.
Yeah.
It's great.
We should go back there.
Maybe I'll see you across the crowded room again.
Oh.
Oh my God.
I love it.
How many times have you written that in your books? Huh?
None.
That one cuts a little too close to home.
Exactly.
Debbie likes to start her love stories
with
a woman with like a rifle
shotgun.
ready to.
Widowhood is so much more respectable.
Yes.
Destiny thought as she loaded the gun.
And we're like, Deb, this is a love story.
I realized I shouldn't write romance.
That was for our Valentine's Day
but
episode.
the NRA loves it, so there you go.
Just got to know your market, Deb.
Yep.
That's right.
What else? Anything else that we should know about as far as the marketing?
Well, there's a lot. I mean, again, you need to write. You need to approach people or media sources that would be a good match. Mm-hmm. For instance, give an example. Let's say that you wrote a book about Lady Gaga. And you're thinking, all right, I wonder what radio station. Well, you're not going to call WEEI, which is a sports talk station dominated by mostly male listenership. So you kind of drill down and you do a little research in any given area and find out where you're not likely to get rejected. You need to start right at ground zero and reach out to your local newspaper. Now, I reached out to the Wyndham Independent, and I know Marianne, who writes for them. I said, hey, I got this book coming out. I'm going to speak at the library. You got a lot of space to fill. They give me a whole page story.
Wow, right. They're great.
So, yeah, they are.
Yep.
And so you need to just start with those very basic connections, and you need to tell whoever you're pitching to, you need to tell them why the book is relevant to them. You have to do the work for them.
Think it out, lay it out for them, basically.
Shelley taught me that.
Yeah. Mike, where can people find you and find your books?
They can find me right here, right now, but when I leave,
yes.
They can find, they go to MikeMorinMedia.com.
MikeMorinMedia.com.
Or you can find me on Facebook, Lunch with Tommy and Stasia. I'm having a lot of people order through me because I sign the books. I do not sign the Amazon books. I mean, if they were smart, they'd have me do that, but nobody's asked me to.
Right. So
And-
if they order directly from you, then they get a signed copy of the book.
Exactly, and it's a little less cheaper for shipping and handling than I think it's $1 less than. And a lot of people like a signed copy, and I try to write something.
Well, especially
personal.
if you're the New England person, there's a more more of a connection there for those of us that live here. And
nothing
remember
beats
that,
an eyeball to eyeball connection, or if you can just sign something and here's the surprise: I'm getting multiple orders from any given person. I'd say at least half the orders are like anywhere from 2 to 10
for
books.
gifts. Right?
Nice.
That's great.
Didn't see that one coming.
Right. Well, thank you, Mike. Thank you so much for
welcome.
coming on today. This was great. Thank you all for listening to The Writer's Block. You can find us at The Writer's Block NH on Facebook. And if you'd like to hear this episode again or share it with a friend, head on over to the UnitedPodcastNetwork.tv. That's the UnitedPodcastNetwork.tv. Thank you for listening, and may you be inspired, feel empowered, and be well.
The views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, or callers of this program do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe, the United Podcast Network, its partners, or affiliates.